Good morning, everyone. I'm Xuanzhi Xia from Tsinghua University, and it's a pleasure to present our Composable Byzantine agreement with Reorder attacks, co-authored with Jingchen, Jingdong, Jichen Li, and Wentao Zhou. Here is the roadmap. First, I will briefly introduce the Byzantine agreement and the composition. As in the literatures, most literatures focus on the single equation of Byzantine agreement, and in today's talk, we consider the multiple equations and the composition of Byzantine agreement. We also study a new attack model where the adversary can arbitrarily reorder channels among instances. Then we will prove our impossibility result and our complementing positive result to form a tie bond, as you will see later. Finally, I will conclude and discuss some future directions. So firstly, Byzantine agreements and their composition. I'm sure everyone here knows what a Byzantine agreement is, so let me just quickly recap it to set up flow for today's talk. Byzantine agreement asks how can a group of n players agree on common value, even if up to t of them are corrupted by a malicious adversary and behave arbitrarily. As the previous talk has said that Byzantine agreement must satisfy some basic properties like termination, agreement, and validity. Termination means each honest player must eventually decide on value, and agreement means all honest players output the same value v. Here we use the classical validity. That means if all honest players have the same initial value, then the agreed upon value must be that value. A common enhance is authenticated Byzantine agreement, where messages are cryptographically signed. So it allows the protocol to raise a higher number of corruptions. And in our work, we prove the impossibility result for authenticated Byzantine agreement and a positive result for unauthenticated Byzantine agreement, so that our theorems are tied and in a complementing form. Now let's look at the communication network. People communicate with each other through a point-to-point network, and each player is modeled as an interactive randomized Turing machine. Usually, in the single execution of Byzantine agreement, we don't talk about the communication tapes. However, in today's talk, we consider composition, and the communication channel could be attacked. So we write out these communication tapes to make our definition formally. As you can see from the figure that each channel has pairwise input and output tapes, and if both player I and J are honest, the output tape will link to the corresponding input tape so that the player can communicate with each other. Now, with this input and output tape, we can formally define the composition and our attack model. So firstly, composition. Composition is a classical topic in both literature and practice. Distributed systems like cross-chain bridges, secure MPC, and shared blockchain rely on just one instance. Here, multiple consensus protocols are executed sequentially, in parallel, and concurrently. In sequential composition, each protocol are run one after another. One must finish before the next begin. And in parallel composition, all instances start at the same time and run side by side. The concurrent composition setting is the most complex. Here, adversary has full control over when executions begin and what rate they proceed. So some instances may start late, but may end early. Some step of execution may be fast, while some may be slow. And intuitively, after inducing composition, Byzantine agreement becomes more hard to solve. The work by Linda et al. Highlights the difficulty. They prove that composition is hard without unique session ID, which means there is no agree upon the messages belong to which instance. Even worse, authentication doesn't help. Formally, they prove that when n less than 3t, no authenticated Byzantine agreement can be secure under parallel composition, even with only 2 instances. Recall that authenticated Byzantine agreement is secure when n greater than 2t plus 1 without composition being considered, so signature cannot help to distinguish which instance a messages belong to. Now, with the global network, the adversary can attack the network layer to make communication channel no longer secure. So we further enhance the adversary's power through our channel reorder attack model. In traditional single execution, the adversary can only corrupt T player. The communication channels themselves are trusted. That means if honest player I send a message to J, then J must receive the message. But now, the adversary can corrupt T player and attack C channels at the same time. So recall that we care about the scenario without relying on unique session ID. That means the player does not know which protocol instance a message originates from. It is called stateless in the literature. So what exactly a channel reorder attack means? when a channel Cij is under attack, the address is allowed to redirect message on the corresponding input tapes for different protocol instance and in both directions. To better understand, let me illustrate it with this figure. You can see that when without channel reorder attack, everything goes well, all input and output tapes align well with each other, and the message that sent in the case instance finally arrive to the ITM in the case instance, and all instances run independently. However, when with channel reorder attack, the adversary can arbitrarily reshuffle the channels among instances. Even if both I and J are honest, the message that I send to J in the case instance may be divided towards the MC instance, then everything messed up. So we have already set up the model. Let's move to the more technical part and show our impossibility result. Our impossibility result has a similar format with the one by Lindo et al., but with channel reorder attack, our results are stronger. We show that either n less than the first formula or the second one, our impossibility result holds. Notice that when C equals 0, it goes back to their impossibility result. But even when all parties are honest, that means T equals 0. Channel attacks make composition hard and must satisfy the second condition. We can see that party corruption and channel reorder both affect the security of protocol. So how do we prove the impossibility result? Let me show you with a toilet case. Consider 3-player and no crappy player. And each player has 2 ITM like A1 and A2. Now the adversary can only choose one channel to reorder. Assume there exists a secure protocol under attack and composition setting. Let's construct a contradiction. Now imagine that 3-player parallel run 2 instances of Byzantine agreement. The first instance consists of 3 ITMs A1, B1, and C1, and all of them have same input of 0. Symmetrically, the second instance consists of ITM A2, B2, and C2, and all of them have same input of 1. Then the malicious adversary chooses your channel between A and C. As the protocol is secure under attack and the composition setting, so by validity, in system S1 under attack, A1 should output 0 and C2 should output 1. And then we can see that with channel reorder attack, the system S1 turned into a hexagonal system S, and the system S and S1 under attack are indistinguishable, so A1 output 0 and C2 output 1 in S. Now we construct another scenario which will contradict the previous one. The same 3-player ABC parallel run 2 instances, but now we choose ITM A1, B2, and C2 consider the first instance, and the remaining ITM A2, B1, C1 consider the second one. And the input of ITM is the same as previous. So now the malicious adversary chooses your channel between A and B. As the protocol is secure under attack and composition setting, still by agreement, in system S2 under attack, A1 and C2 should output the same value. You can also see that under attack, system S2 turned into the exactly same hexagonal system S. So system S and S2 under attack are indistinguishable, and A1 and C2 output the same value in S. Now putting 2 scenarios together, we found the contradiction. By validity of first scenario, A1 output 0 and C2 output 1, but by agreement of second scenario, A1 and C2 output the same value, thereby contradict. So for the simple case, only 3-player and no crappy player, there do not exist a secure Byzantine agreement on the parallel composition and synchronous network, even with only 2 instances. For more general situation, we still using a similar reasoning that the protocol is insecure under the same condition. We also construct a hexagonal system S, but notice that B and C no longer represent a single player. Here, B and C are a set of players which total number is less than T plus C. So the adversary can target attack player A's view and then by validity, A1 should output different value with C2, but by agreement, A1 should output the same value with C2. Thereby, we found a contradiction. In light of impossibility result, now let me show you our positive result for both synchronous and asynchronous network. And you will see that our conditions are tight as the condition matches the impossibility result. So let's first consider synchronous network, which is easier to solve. In this setting, we construct a black box compiler which transfers any BA protocol to a parallel composition secure BA protocol. And more exciting, if original BA is unauthenticated, the final BA is also unauthenticated, as our compiler is unauthenticated, parallel composition secure under any number of execution. So it will not add extra authentication requirement. Now with this flexible compiler, we can turn any BA protocol in single execution to a compositional secure ones. So let's construct the flexible compiler. The main problem here is that message transmission is no longer reliable. Recall that in single execution, we consider a point-to-point network that ensures the message between two honest player I and J are finally received. But with channel reorder attack, this no longer holds. Player cannot confirm from which instance a message comes from. So the idea is that we construct a reliable message transmission protocol in which the player will only to accept a message after he receives enough evidence to prove the message is true. We need to mention here that the reliable message transmission is well studied in the literature, and we are the first one to study it in the composition setting. Our RMT has some good properties, and we will show them later, and this reliable message transmission is parallel composition secure. Now with this reliable message transmission, the flexible compiler will turn any single message sending to this protocol to maintain security. So the RMT works roughly as follows. Consider setting that PI wants to send a message to PJ. However, PI will send it to all parties except PJ. Of course, PI send to PJ is also allowed, but for the convenience of analyze, we consider PI send to PJ in the next round. Among this message, some may fail to deliver due to channel attack or corrupted receiver, but we can guarantee that most of them are received. Next, the forwarding stage. For the player PK, upon he receives the message that PI wants to send to PJ, he will actively participate in forwarding the message as long as he's honest. Also, the sender PI will send a message to PJ. Then after forwarding stage, PJ will count the number of messages he received. If he receives strictly more than a -1/2 message, then it accepts, otherwise it rejects. Then let's discuss some excellent properties of RMT that is widely studied in the literature: correctness and unforgeability. First, correctness. Correctness means if both I and J are honest and I send a message to J, then J must finally accept the message. In terms of protocol, if you write a condition that n greater than 2c plus 2t plus 1, you got that c plus t is less than n minus 1 over 2. So the number of honest players with secure channel is greater than n minus 1 over 2. Then, when both I and J are honest, the received majority is always a correct message. Next, unforgeability. When I didn't send a message to J, adversary cannot forge a message and make J accept. As if I didn't send a message, even if all of the corrupt party and the real channel targeted tag the single player J, it is not enough for J to accept. So in terms of our protocol, also write a condition that n greater than 2c plus 2 plus 1, you got the same condition, c plus t is less than n minus 1 over 2. That is not enough for J to accept. Now we have roughly established the properties. Of course, some details are omitted. Up to this point, we have completed the construction of RMT and use this protocol as a flexible compiler. We can turn any BA that tolerates T corruption, no matter what the relationship between N and T, into a parallel composition secure BA protocol. And in literature, there exist many BA protocols and can tolerate one sort of N corruption, so we found the existence of parallel composition secure ones and finished the proof. Now let's move to the more challenging part: Byzantine agreement with asynchronous network and concurrent composition. On the same condition, we construct an unauthenticated Byzantine agreement, which is concurrent composition secure under any number execution. Here, we construct a specific protocol, but not provide a black box compiler. And in the idea of reliable message transmission, we construct a composition secure reliable broadcast, which targets the message broadcast. First, let me briefly introduce the reliable broadcast. Most asynchronous BA protocols use reliable broadcast exclusively for message transmission. And recall that reliable broadcast is different against the reliable message transmission, while the reliable message transmission consider the point-to-point network, the reliable broadcast consider a message broadcast. So it must satisfy properties like validity and agreement. Validity means if an honest party broadcasts a message, then all other honest parties will eventually accept the message. And agreement means if one honest party accepts message, then all other honest parties will eventually accept the same message. Due to time constraint, I will not going to provide any technical detail and the detailed algorithm here, but provide you some intuition. We cannot use the traditional broadcast here with the same problem that message transmission is no longer reliable on the channel reorder text. In traditional broadcast rebroadcast, each player broadcasts state like ready, equal, and receive via a message, and security is guaranteed through counting. Now, besides this message, the key idea of our protocol is a local state parameter. Here, each player maintains a local state to track the current state of all other player, and they will only update their local state after receiving enough message that as evidence that can prove another player has indeed changed their state. Now, without providing any further technical detail, let's put our two positive results together and compare them. Our positive results include a rebel transmission and a rebroadcast. The first one is applied to parallel composition and the synchronous network, and which is a black box compiler and is applicable to any beer protocols that is secure in single execution. The second one maintains a local state and is designed for concurrent composition and asynchronous network, which to meet the most challenging situation. In conclusion, when n less than the max of these two components, there do not exist a parallel composable asynchronous Byzantine agreement. Otherwise, we construct a parallel and concurrently composable Byzantine agreement. As for the future work, although our black box compiler is polynomial time, the current construction doubles round number and multiplies total communication by n, so we will try to improve the efficiency to meet the optimal. Also, communication lower bounds for composition secure protocol is still unsolved and worth exploring. As for the situation that the validity notion is weaker than standard one, we wonder that we can find the better bounds for weak validity notion and the composition citing. That's all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for the talk. Could you go back to the slide right before this? So you said something like the current construction doubles a round number and multiplies the total communication by n. Does the current construction actually require that you send the same message to every single person? Or could it be, for example, a shard of a message with a proof that it is correct?
Yeah, but we consider the situation that without a signature here.
Without, sorry?
It's uncertainty here, though without a signature.
Sure. But my point is you don't need a signature, actually. I think you can send essentially a high-level ZK proof that confirms every shard is correct, independent of the authentication. Right. So yeah, like what version of it is...
That's maybe okay, but
actually read Solomon and code.
Yeah, we don't consider this in the paper.
Okay, but my point is I think it can reduce that to O of 1.
Okay, thank you.
Because you're sending shards of the underlying message and you just recover them at the end. So, or just like a custom model. Happy to.
Any other question? So I have a question.
Yeah.
It wasn't clear to me. Like, can't one solution be that for each channel, for each execution of a protocol, and for each node, there is a different public key, and then this can be solved by authenticating not just node identity, but also channel and protocol?
Yeah, I know your idea. That's okay, but it will be expensive to establish a public key for each protocol and different public key.
Sure, but that's like if you have one setup phase beforehand, the problem should be solved, right?
Yeah.